What are some of the most common mistakes that screenwriters that you work with
Mhm.
that you find they make?
Well, it's interesting because, I've worked with so many writers now, and it's um it's surprising to me how much, it doesn't matter how much experience a writer has, a lot of the things that don't work in a screenplay end up going back to the basics, right? So it's like um stuff like who's the protagonist. If our focus is unclear, if we don't know who to follow in the story, that's a pretty fundamental
Mm,
thing in a screenplay. But writers of all levels sort of still make those same, I'll call them mistakes, but I don't necessarily think they are mistakes. It's just a matter of like fine tuning the story that you're trying to tell. But yeah, the problems that a lot of writers have with trying to get their screenplays really working come back to those foundational elements. It's like,
mm,
who's the protagonist? What are they trying to achieve? Are they actively going after it? Is there enough conflict standing in their way? Is there something at stake so we care about it? It's like those very basic things that we learn first thing when we start studying screenwriting. Um, the problems that people have, or the struggles that they have with their screenplays, tend to go back to those same things. So I feel like I'm always hitting on the basics, like pay attention to the basics, and
mm.
trying to like educate people about that. And sometimes I feel like, oh, people think I'm just saying the most basic things, but really those are the things you need to kind of build your story on. And if you master those like foundational elements, I think that that gets your screenplay like 70% of the way there. You know
Mm.
what I mean? That's like so much of it.
Do you think that's an ego problem that people maybe think they're better than they are, so they jump ahead like too fast in their journey?
I don't think it's ego. I think we all do this when there's like an idea that we're excited about. We just
Mm,
get excited and
yeah.
we start thinking four steps ahead instead of like starting at the very bottom and kind of creating that foundation and then building on top of that. I also think those elements, just because they're foundational doesn't mean that they're necessarily easy. You know what I mean?
Mm,
And
yeah.
so sometimes it's a struggle to get your own sort of clarity on what are those basic elements of your story and how does your story work. And sometimes that takes a few drafts to get through before you're like, oh, okay, now I understand what I'm really trying to write here. And I can go back and kind of like put all of those big pieces in place in the right way so that they work together, you know?
Mm.